Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are walking right up to probably the biggest, scariest monument in all of American literature.
Hmm.
We're talking about the book that everyone claims to have read at a dinner party just to sound smart, but, well, let's be honest.
You probably haven't finished it.
Yeah.
It's the literary equivalent of a gym membership in January.
Ha,
You
yes.
buy the copy, you put it on the shelf, you feel really good about yourself for just owning it.
Yeah.
And then, there it stays.
Gathering dust. Exactly. We are talking, of course, about Moby-Dick by Herman Melville.
Of course.
But, and this is a massive but, I want you to just, for a second, put down your high school flashbacks.
Please.
We are not doing a book report on whale anatomy today. We're looking at a specific review. It's called The Deepest Tide, which makes a pretty bold claim.
A very bold claim. It argues that we've been consuming this story wrong for, the last 170 years?
Right. And the core argument is that Moby-Dick was never really meant to be read, at least not silently in a chair.
It was meant to be heard.
This fascinated me because I usually think of audiobooks as just, a convenience, something to do while I'm folding laundry.
For sure.
But this source suggests that when you shift from the physical book to the audiobook, the entire genre changes. It stops being this, dense, academic doorstop.
And it turns into what they call a hypnotic philosophical journey.
Okay, so that makes sense if you look at how Melville wrote it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to remember, this is the mid-19th century. He was borrowing heavily from Shakespeare, from the King James Bible.
From stage plays.
From stage plays. The rhythm of the sentences is built for the ear, not for the eye. When you read it silently, your brain just sort of trips over the sentence structures.
You get stuck on the comment.
You get stuck. But when a skilled narrator reads it,
It just flows.
it flows like a tide. It has a cadence. And the review points out that those long, rambling chapters about, whale taxonomy,
The parts where everybody quits.
the parts where 90% of readers just give up,
Yeah.
they suddenly transform. They stop being textbook entries and become these, meditative spoken word pieces on nature.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I've tried to read it, and I got totally stuck in the chapters about rope tying and whale blubber.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying the audio version actually makes that interesting? Or is it just easier to sit through?
It's not just that it's easier, it's that the intent of the writing lands differently. The source compares it to a sermon or even a sea shanty.
Okay.
When you hear the descriptions of the try works, where they boil the blubber, it's not just a technical instruction. The narrator's voice brings out the hellish, almost industrial atmosphere. It becomes sound design, but with words.
So the slog becomes a trance.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And that creates a level of immersion you just don't get with the paperback. The review talks about the isolation of the listener.
I can see that. If you're listening with headphones, maybe walking alone or something, you're in your own little bubble.
Precisely. And that mirrors the experience of the characters. They are stuck on this tiny wooden ship in the middle of a massive empty ocean.
Right.
So when you have a narrator whispering these descriptions of the unshored, harborless immensities into your ear, it creates a genuine sense of awe and frankly, terror.
It puts you on the Pequod.
It really does, in a way the text on a page just struggles to do.
And that brings us to the man himself, Captain Ahab. Because this is where the review says the audiobook really shines in the performance.
This is a crucial point. On the page, Ahab can come across as, a bit of a cartoon.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy with a peg leg shaking his fist at a fish. It feels melodramatic.
It does, like a bad stage play where the actor's just chewing the scenery.
Totally.
But the source highlights that when you hear those speeches performed by a top-tier narrator,
Yeah.
you finally understand the charisma. You stop seeing the crazy old man and you start hearing the magnetic leader.
And that makes it believable that the crew would actually follow him.
That's the part that often gets lost.
Yeah.
Ahab convinces a ship full of rational working-class men who are there to make money that his personal grudge is actually a holy crusade.
And that requires a voice.
It requires a specific kind of hypnotic rhetoric that you really need to hear to believe.
That's the terrifying part, isn't it? It's that reality distortion field. We see that in leaders all the time.
We do. And this leads us to the central psychological theme the review unpacks, which hits much harder in the audio format, the trap of unchecked obsession.
Okay, so let's get into the psychology here. We've all seen movies about revenge. John Wick, Taken. Usually we root for the guy. We want him to get the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So why is Ahab different? Why does the review frame his obsession as a trap instead of a mission?
Because in those movies, the goal is usually justice or restoration. Ahab's goal is something else entirely. The The review describes his journey not as a mission, but as a death march of the ego.
A death march to the ego, that is heavy.
It is. Ahab isn't just trying to kill a whale. He's trying to kill the idea that bad things happen for no reason.
Wait, break that down for me. He's trying to kill an idea.
Think about it. If the whale is just a dumb animal that bit his leg by accident, acting on instinct, then Ahab is just a cripple with bad luck.
There's no meaning in his suffering.
None. It's just random. And that is intolerable to a man with his massive ego. He cannot accept that the universe hurt him by accident.
So he needs the whale to be evil.
Bingo. He projects all this malice, all of this intelligence and hatred onto a blank slate. If the whale is demon, then Ahab becomes a hero for fighting it.
Wow.
He gives his suffering meaning by inventing a villain.
So he's projecting meaning onto chaos because the chaos scares him more than the monster does.
Precisely. And the tragedy, according to our source, is that he drags an entire ship of people into that delusion right along with him.
And this is where the moral decay aspect comes in. The review mentioned that obsession erases morality, empathy, and reason.
It absolutely does. Ahab stops seeing his crew as human beings. He stops seeing the beauty of the ocean or the danger of the storms. Everything is filtered through the lens of the whale.
It's the ultimate tunnel vision.
Total tunnel vision. If Starbuck or Stubb can't help him kill the whale, they are just tools to be used until they break. And in the audiobook, you can actually hear this shift in his voice.
Chilling.
You hear the moment he disconnects from his own humanity.
So this brings us to the whale itself, Moby-Dick. Because if Ahab is projecting all this onto him, what is the whale, actually?
This is the aha moment of the whole deep dive, the philosophical crux. The review had a take on this that actually gave me chills. It said, "The whale is not the villain. The whale is the mirror."
Zero.
Yes. Melville spends entire chapters just talking about the whiteness of the whale. Now, in our culture, white is usually the color of purity, right?
Angels, weddings, innocence, it's the good guy color.
Usually. But here, the source argues that whiteness represents the void. It represents an atheistic, indifferent universe. It's not that the whale hates Ahab.
It's that the whale doesn't even care about Ahab.
It doesn't care. It doesn't even know he exists. And that is somehow so much worse.
It really is. It's the silence of the universe.
And the review argues that Ahab cracks because he looks into that silence and hears nothing back.
Yeah.
He just cannot handle the indifference of nature.
So it's not man versus monster. It's man versus the realization that he doesn't matter.
Correct. And that is why the ship, the Pequod, is described in the review as a philosophical debate at sea.
Right, because you have different characters representing different ways of dealing with that silence.
Exactly. So who are the other players in this debate? Well, you have Starbuck, the first mate.
The voice of reason.
The voice of reason. He represents logic and pragmatism. He just wants to do his job, get the oil, go home to his family. He keeps trying to tell Ahab, hey, this is a business trip. That whale doesn't have any more oil than any other whale.
He's the guy trying to show the P&L spreadsheet to a madman.
He is. And in the audiobook, the narrator usually gives Starbuck this very grounded, almost pleading tone.
Yeah.
You can hear the panic rising in his voice as he realizes logic isn't going to work here.
And then there's our narrator, Ishmael.
Right. Ishmael is the observer. He represents wonder. He looks at the same whale, the same ocean, and he sees beauty and mystery, not just malice. He accepts that he can't control it.
And Queequeg, the review mentioned him as a standout character, especially in the audio version.
Queequeg is fantastic. He's the harpooner from the South Seas, and he represents humanity beyond so-called civilized boundaries.
Right.
He and Ishmael form this incredibly deep bond. They're essentially soulmates, which, for the 1850s...
Big radical.
Extremely. But the point is, Queequeg is at peace. He accepts death. He accepts life. He doesn't need to conquer the whale to feel whole. And the audio version gives him a voice that makes him the emotional anchor of the entire story.
So we have this whole cast of characters, all stuck on a boat, heading toward a disaster that everyone but the captain seems to see coming.
It's like watching a car crash in slow motion. Or, maybe more accurately, it's like being in the back seat of a car where the driver's aiming for a tree and you're too polite to grab the wheel.
That leads to the question of fate versus free will. The review brought that up as a big theme. Is Ahab driving the bus, or is the bus on a track?
The audiobook really emphasizes this through recurring symbols, these omens that pop up, these almost Shakespearean prophecies.
Like a Greek tragedy.
Exactly. You know the ending, but you have to watch them get there. And Ahab himself has these moments of lucidity.
He does.
Oh, yeah. There are moments where he looks at the sea and almost cries, thinking about his home. He almost turns back.
Yeah.
But then he says he feels like he's being pushed by some invisible hand. He calls himself the Fates Lieutenant.
So he's rationalizing his own refusal to stop. I can't stop. The universe is making me do it.
It's the ultimate abdication of responsibility.
Okay, so we have a crazy captain, a philosophical whale, and a crew doomed by passivity. I have to pivot to the so what here.
Mm-hmm.
Why should a modern listener, someone commuting to a tech job or running a startup, why should they care about a 19th century whaling trip?
Because the Pequod is the ultimate case study in toxic leadership and the sunk cost fallacy.
The sunk cost fallacy. Okay, tell me more about that connection.
Think about it. They are months at sea. They have invested time, money, labor, sanity. They have barrels of oil already. The rational thing to do...
Just turn around and bank the profit.
What Starbuck begs to do, turn around, go home, they could win.
But they don't?
Because the CEO Ahab pivots the entire mission from profit to personal vendetta. And because he's charismatic, and because the crew is already all in, they go along with it.
I feel like I've worked for this company.
I think many of us have. The source emphasizes that modern obsession often looks like vision at first. You know, a leader who wants to disrupt the industry or change the world.
And that sounds great.
It sounds great. But the line between visionary and Ahab is incredibly thin.
So where is that line? How do you know when you've crossed it?
The review suggests the line is crossed when the goal stops being about the outcome and starts being about the ego. When you stop seeing your team as people and start seeing them as fuel.
When you were fighting a battle just to prove you are right, regardless of the cost.
That's the death march.
Yeah.
And in the modern world, maybe the white whale isn't a literal whale. Maybe it's a competitor you're obsessed with crushing.
Or a market force you can't control but refuse to adapt to.
Or even just a grudge against an ex-partner.
You're fighting a war against something that doesn't even know you exist.
Precisely. The market doesn't hate you. The algorithm doesn't hate you. They just are. But if you treat them like a personal enemy, you will burn out your crew trying to harpoon them.
The review did have a bit of an honest take warning, though. We should probably mention that before people rush out to download a 25-hour audiobook.
Right. We should be clear. The source says this is not for you if you want fast-paced action. If you have a short attention span, Moby-Dick will crush you.
It'll bore you to tears.
It really will. It demands patience.
Yeah.
But the source says it rewards it with insight. It's for deep thinkers, philosophy lovers, people who are willing to just sit with a story that unfolds slowly.
So don't expect Jaws.
No. Expect a long, dark look into the mirror.
Okay, let's start to wrap this up then. We've covered the medium, the obsession, the philosophy, and the modern application. The source's final verdict was a 4.5 out of 5.
A very high score. They called it profound, challenging, and unforgettable.
And they emphasize that ultimately it's a study of pride and defiance against the universe. It's about that moment when you look at the stars or the sea and you say, I matter, and the universe just says nothing.
And how you react to that silence defines who you are. Do you accept it with wonder, like Ishmael? Or do you attack it with a harpoon, like Ahab?
The key lesson the source pulled out was really powerful. Not every battle is worth fighting, and not every enemy is real.
That second part is the real kicker for me. Not every enemy is real.
Huh.
Moby-Dick wasn't an enemy. He was just a whale. Ahab made him an enemy.
And that leads perfectly to our final thought for today. We always like to leave you with something to chew on.
If Moby-Dick represents indifference rather than evil, we want you to look at your own life.
Right. What are the white whales in your world? Is there a project at work that's dragging on just because you refuse to admit it's failed? Is there a grudge against an old friend that you're just holding on to?
Are you projecting meaning onto something that is just chaos? Are you fighting a war against something that doesn't even know you exist?
And the big question, if you finally catch that white whale, will it actually solve anything? Or will the rope just catch you around the neck and pull you under?
Sometimes the bravest thing you can do, the thing Ahab couldn't do, is just turn the ship around.
That's it for this deep dive into the audiobook of Moby-Dick. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep your head above water.